Hi, this is Heather McLaren. I'm a relationship manager with AudienceView and a former member of the support team. I'm also a former client. Today we're going to talk about charge configuration, and thanks for joining us. Charge configuration on the one hand is very straightforward. On the other hand, there are a lot of different configuration points along the way that can affect the way charges report, the way they calculate, and the way they cap. We've noticed that there are some questions that come into support about this type of thing, things that are a little confusing and things that I myself found confusing when I was a user. So we just wanted to quickly go through the basic configuration and then spend a little more time on the things that we tend to get questions about. So we'll start on the product configuration charges details page. As you can see in this top section, the name field is required. Description and short description are not, but I do like to use those. Short description is customer facing. If that is left blank, then name will be what's displayed online, but I like to use the short description field. It does allow me to have a more descriptive name for my desktop users and display something different, more customer friendly online. The GL codes here are optional, but if you fill these in with codes and descriptions that match up with your accounting, then this can be used with the general ledger report. And the next required field here is type. Type is going to affect how charges appear on reports. So we have 5 options. Commission, which would typically be used for something in which you're doing a profit share with someone who's selling tickets on your behalf, such as a group sales agent. A service charge is exactly what it sounds like, an internet fee, a telephone fee, anything like that. Tax, again, exactly what it sounds like. And then there are 2 configurable charge types, user tax 1 and user tax 2. If you have more categories of charges that don't really fit into commission, service charge, or tax, these can be relabeled and used as you need them. So in general configuration lists, there's a list called service charge types, and this is where user tax 1 and user tax 2 can be relabeled if you need to do that. Ticket template is optional for a charge, but it can be very useful under certain circumstances. You don't have to have any sort of ticket template print for a charge. However, if you do configure one, it can be used for something like a drink voucher, some sort of merchandise, or a parking pass. It basically allows you to print out a separate ticket, which can be collected separately if it's for something other than an admission. The ticket templates are bound to a list, so when you're configuring your charge, the only thing you're going to see there is ticket templates that you have configured with service charge as the type. If you don't have anything configured that's specifically a service charge template, you're not going to see anything. You won't get the options for admissions or delivery or anything like that. Okay, also on the details page is version. So you have to create a version before you can actually move on and price your charge. And as you add a version, you're going to be asked for a level. The majority of your charges are probably going to be level 1, which means that the charge is on the item itself. Level 2 is a charge on the item at any level 1 charges, so basically a charge on a charge. Here's an example. This is an admission. My admission amount is $100. I have a level 1 additional charge, let's call it the internet fee of $5. So what's going to happen, because this is a level 1 charge, is it's going to add those 2 together, so $105, and then charge my level 2 charge, which is 7% tax. So instead of charging my 7% just on the $100 admission amount, it's actually going to charge 7% on the whole $105, the admission amount plus my level 1 charge. The next tab here is Product Configuration Charges Caps. Caps are optional, but they do affect how many charges you will see on each order. I think that the language here can be a little bit confusing and maybe a little bit misleading. When you add a charge to the price chart, you have the option of per order. When you add a charge to a bundle, you have an option of per instance. I think Sometimes that is construed as, okay, if I make this a per order charge, it's going to charge once per order, that's it, and I don't need a cap. But actually, that's not the case. So if you have a per order charge on your price chart with no cap, you're going to see one charge per admission. Similarly, on a bundle, if you have a per instance charge with no cap, you will see one charge per admission. However, if you do add a cap, so per order charge with a cap of 1, you will see one charge per order, exactly as the description makes it sound. And per instance with a cap of 1, you will see one charge per bundle instance. So just keep that in mind if you're building and you're testing and you think there should only be one charge on this, and why am I seeing 4? Go into the cap tab and just check what your cap is configured as, if you have any cap configured, as you most likely, if you just want one charge per bundle or one charge per order, you will need to have that cap configured. Okay. Our next tab is pricing. Now the prices is very straightforward. You'll select your roles and add the price. However, the thing that I find interesting over here are the available charges, so you can actually configure a charge on a charge. Our options here are included charges, inside charges, and additional charges, and we're going to get into that in more detail when we look at price charts. But just for the moment, I wanted to show you an example. So I've created a banquet service charge, and internally I know that part of the service charge is going to go to food services and part of it's going to go to the ticket office. So I've built just a single $10 charge because that's what I want my ticket buyers to see. Oops. However, I've added charges to this. I've added my food service charge and my ticket office charge. So internally it's going to be broken down. I think in this example I put $8 for food service and $2 to the ticket office. So internally I'll be able to report on the breakdown of who gets what money. Externally, my customers are just seeing one $10 banquet service charge. So that's always an option for you to put a charge on a charge. Okay, and the next tab is location. This is relatively new. This came in I think 6.8. And this is great because this allows you to configure charges differently based on your location. So I live in Illinois, so I've used Illinois as an example. And I've created a FedEx charge. So in this example, I'm imagining that FedEx costs less to deliver something within my state and more to deliver from outside my state. So I've configured two different delivery charges. One is delivery fee exclude Illinois, and one is delivery fee Illinois only. And I've added both of these to FedEx, the FedEx delivery method. Now, the one we're looking at is Illinois only. So I have added the condition include, the address field. I think your options here are state, city, and zip code. So in this case, I'm going to include Illinois. I spelled it out, and I also included the abbreviation just because I know I might have some of each within my database. And then in customer services, when I select this delivery method and I have an Illinois address, I get my delivery fee Illinois only, so it's $5. And here, this one has a Toronto address, so this is my delivery fee exclude Illinois, and I've made that $10. So that's a cool thing to be able to do. Okay, so now we've got our charge configured. Now we're going to look at putting it on a price chart. As I mentioned before, we've got 3 different options for calculation. Well, we also have per order, but we've already talked about that. Calculation included, inside, and additional. Additional is very straightforward, so we're not going to spend much time on that. It's if I have a $50 ticket and a $5 additional charge, my total is going to be $55. Inside and included are both going to come out of the total admission. So $50, if it's $50 price in the pricing tab with an included or inside charge, it's still going to be $50 total. Just internally, we're going to break out a certain amount of money from that $50 that goes to tax or commission, something like that. When included and inside charges are configured as a dollar value, they function exactly the same. But when you configure them as a percentage, they're going to function differently. And this is in the documentation, and the documentation is great, but it is one of those things that even in all this time of using the software, I still have to look up and remind myself which one I need. So let me just talk about the differences, and then we'll talk about where they're most commonly used. So included charge is very straightforward. The amount of the item times the charge rate equals the included charge. So in this case, $100 admission amount times 5% is $5 charge. Very straightforward. Inside charge is a little bit different, and this is basically how VAT is calculated in the UK. There are other locations which use this as well. So it's the amount of the item minus the amount of the item divided by the included charge rate plus 1. So same example, $100 minus $100 divided by 1.05, and I get 4.76 as my charge. So I don't think you have to worry too much about how charges are calculated. You just need to know what is required for your region and always use that one. In general, included is more common in the US, and inside is more common in the UK, but there are exceptions. I was working with a customer in the US and thinking that they needed included, but they actually needed inside. So it's just important that you find out what the rules are regarding taxes in your location and use that. Like I said, this is in the documentation. So if you ever run into an issue where you think the charge is not calculating the way you would expect, just double check that you have the correct between inside and included. And once you know what's right for your location, the tax rate might change, but the tax calculation is not likely to change. So you should be all set once you figure out what calculation is correct for you, just to use that every time. Okay, this is a little tip that I found very, very useful when I was working in customer service. Charges can be made writable, either in the registry or in application security. This gives you some flexibility. I know that a lot of you will have had the same experience, but you get a phone call from someone who has purchased online or over the phone, and they're just furious about having to pay additional charges. And in some cases, we make a judgment call and we say, okay, we're going to refund the service fee. Now, making charges writable really allows the flexibility to be able to do this just by writing over the price that you've configured for that charge, rather than having to refund or redo the order in a role that doesn't have charges. There are a bunch of different charges, a bunch of different locations in the registry that can be made writable. I don't necessarily recommend doing all of these. And you don't have to memorize this. This is in the documentation. So if you know, I want to be able to write over my additional charges on delivery fee or something like that, you can come to this chart in the documentation and find the registry note that you would need to update. So for example, in this case, I have done registry business objects, TS order BO, performance charges, amount, and then I've changed writable to yes. And then when I come into my order, I'm in the seats tab, and I can see that this is now writable. Per ticket service charge is now a writable field. So $350 is the amount I've configured, but I was able to write over that with 0. You could also write over that with a higher amount if you needed to. The more common example is certainly refunding a charge for an unhappy customer. Now, registry is certainly an option, but I think I personally would default to doing this in application security. Again, it's in TS order BO attributes, and you can just find the field you want and make it writable yes. this is good because that allows you to let your administrators write over charges if they want to, but not necessarily any temporary box office staff, or really it just allows you to have the control over who can do this and who cannot. Okay, the next thing I wanted to look at was how charges report. So I've configured a performance that has a bunch of different types of charges all within the same event. My concession discount price, I've configured a commission, and I've configured that commission as an inclusive charge. So the inclusive charges column here is going to have anything that is configured as either inside or included. So I'm going to see my commission up here in my inclusive charges column, and I'm also going to see it down here. Oh, I lied. This is not the commission. This is my concession discount. So this is actually tax. It's my group price that I configured a commission for. So I'll see my commission in my inclusive charges column, and I'm also going to see it down here under the commission section. And then I've also configured on my full price, I've configured additional tax, and I've configured an additional charge. So I'm not going to see anything up here under sold admissions because this is not showing us any additional charges. It's only showing us inclusive charges. I do see those charges down here in my additional tax, and my ticket office fee is under the charges column. So if every admission that has been sold for this performance has also been paid, and I'm trying to reconcile sales with payments, I'm going to see the net is going to match up with the admissions column under my payments. And then I'm going to see my charges matching up with the charges section. This includes both, if I had additional charges and included charges, they're all going to be here. Same thing, taxes are going to match up with my tax column up here, and commission is going to match up with my commissions up here. There's also my charges report. I can run this for a date range. I can run it for a particular series. In this case, I've run it just for this one particular performance. And you can see all of the charges that are part of this performance and whether they're a charge, tax, or commission. Within that, what the specific charge name is, the description if there is one, and then I can see sold versus paid. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today is new options for displaying charges online. If you come into Application Security Roles Basic, here I'm in the Internet role. Under Options, you're going to see that there's a new option for display per ticket charges on seat selection. So in classic audience view without that option enabled, when I select a seat, I'm just going to see the ticket price here online. So if I enable that new option, I'm going to see some more detail here. Instead of just full price $50, I'm going to see the total price including charges. So $50 ticket price plus $7.20 in fees. And then I can see on my group ticket, no ticket fees. And then also, if I have display per ticket charges on single tickets enabled, I also see this box where I can click to get more information about fees, and this is the message I have configured. We charge fees to facilitate the processing of credit and debit card payments and to cover administrative costs and overheads associated with each ticket sale. So, it's important to know that in the UK, the Advertising Standards Agency, or ASA, requires us to show the breakdown of ticket price versus fees upfront online. So if you're in that region, you should definitely be enabling this option. If you're not in that region, just know what your laws are. We do our best, but every location is a little bit different in support, and your relationship manager is not necessarily going to know the law in your area as well as you're going to know it. If there is no requirement to display that type of detail about your charges, then it's completely up to your organization. If you would rather stick with the old way and not display the additional detail, you'll still see the breakdown of charges once you get to the shopping cart. But if you like this option and you think, yes, let's show the detail on charges up front, that will be great and very helpful, then it's quick and easy to configure that for your internet role or roles. And that is about it. If you have any questions, this session is pre-recorded, so you can email us questions at avconnect@audienceview.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.